So I didn't play a lot of the trials stuff. I've only played a few of the weekends. I played the very first weekend. I played the second or third weekend after they had made the the win pool changes.
The flawless pool, yeah.
The flawless pool, yep. I didn't play this past weekend, which was apparently like it was hell. I was on Twitter and I was like, I felt uncomfortable. Everyone was so angry, and I don't fully know why. So give me a quick rundown.
People that might not know. The quick and dirty rundown. So first weekend, it was like the normal matchmaking. Everyone loved the first weekend, but Bungie's like, screw it, we're doing something new, right? So they introduced the flawless pool, which is like, if you go flawless, then you're in the flawless pool, and for the rest of the weekend, you will try to match people who are also in this flawless pool to kind of have like easy matchmaking for people who haven't gone flawless, and then a more fair matchmaking for people who have. But people complained. They changed the time at which was enabled. Like it was enabled like very quickly, and then they made it so that it was enabled like Sunday morning. So you'd have a couple days without it, and everyone's just playing each other normally. Then you'd have a couple of days with it, and then they're like, not good enough. They kept messing around with it. Then they're like, not good enough. We're gonna do win-based matchmaking. So last weekend they said the amount of wins you have will determine who you've matched. So if I have 50 wins, I'm going to match other people who have around 50 wins. If I have 1 win or 0 wins, I'm going to match other people who just started their cards. That was the theory. And people were not happy because it really punishes like the grinders, which is interesting because if you look at the reward system, right, how they have the trials engrams, it's all about just getting wins. It's not about streaks anymore. Like you just get wins, and then you get that trials like reputation to unlock more ranks with Saladin and all that stuff.
Right.
All that favors grinding, like playing the whole weekend. But once you get up to like 50 wins, even if you're not good enough to go flawless, like if I have 50 wins, never been flawless, some guy just went flawless 4 times in a row, he's gonna have about the same wins as me. We're gonna match, which doesn't seem right. So
well, it really hurt a lot of the really casual players because what would happen, Mike, is they would maybe win 2 or 3 matches and then they'd get a loss and they're like, man, I'd really love to get that flawless loot. So they reset their card. Then they win 2 to 3 and they lose. They reset their card. Technically, now they're matching based off of their collective, 5, 6 wins. So previous weeks, the longer it took you to go flawless, the easier matchmaking got because the flawless players were getting out of your pool. So eventually it just got easier and easier and easier until you could finally go flawless. This was the exact opposite of that. The more times you have to reset your card, the harder your matches are getting. So it's the exact opposite. It's just a complete inverse.
You were quite literally punished for playing more.
You're punished for playing more and doing decent. Because it's like you didn't do good enough to go flawless and be like, all right, I got my reward. And you kept working at it, and then you almost screwed yourself. Like that's terrible. And so like, was it unanimous? Like good players and weaker players, they're like weekend was terrible. Like it was the worst weekend.
The very casual, low skill players were still, I think, on the you guys just don't want to have fair matches train. Bungie actually released the data today. So just today in the TWAB, they said that overall, Tash, they saw 33% less games played overall. So that's a third of matches just gone, evaporated, because people were like, screw this, right? And then they saw a significant decrease in the higher end skill players. Like they played on average like 2 hours less than normal. So they saw a huge dip in the high skill, and the other players pretty much kind of stayed the same. So here's the crazy part. The blowout rate, which is like 5-0 games, like Bungie's trying to avoid blowouts because it's like that shows you like that's unfair. Like no one likes to go in and you lose 5-0 and you're like, right? The blowout rate is usually like 24-25%. It was 28%, so it actually went up. So all this matchmaking just to try to shelter the low skill players actually resulted in more blowouts, I think, because of what True Vanguard and myself are talking about, where it's like the more you play, you keep matching better and better players, even if you're not a good player.
So then eventually you start getting smacked around.
Yeah. So basically, Bungie, it's kind of crazy. They introduced this new system. They're like, all right, Flawless Pool's gone. We introduced this new system. the data itself is just not good. You can't lose 33% of like, even if you're a low skill player and you're mad about like streamers complaining, if you don't look at that data and think that's a problem, then you're just selfish. You don't care about what's good for the game, because that's just a bad metric.
Yeah, the numbers speak for themselves.
You don't just lose 33% of like matches in one weekend, like. And I think it was the sniper as a reward, which is pretty desirable. So it's like, again, that's just bad.
SMG.
So they got rid of it. Or was the SMG? Well, but it doesn't matter. They got rid of it. So they're like, we're done. We're going back to the flawless pool. Now, there's a little bit of a conspiracy. I already saw some tweets. They're like, dude, people were complaining about the flawless pool, and Bungie straight up introduced something that's so much worse that now everyone wants the flawless pool back.
Thank God we're back to the flawless pool.
Yeah, so even the hardcore players, it's like, did Bungie throw away one weekend, make it the Widow's Court map, which everyone fucking hates, just to like make everyone hate this new matchmaking so much, so they asked for the flawless back, so Bungie can get all the hardcore players to shut up about the flawless pool because they're scared to complain because they know something worse is down the line? Like, that's the conspiracy. That's the tinfoil hat conspiracy.
So did you actually play it all this weekend?
No.
Cactus?
No.
So this was my experience.
I talked to a lot of people who did, and they were not happy. I actually tried to find people to play with, and everyone was like, "No," because I was busy.
I'm not surprised.
But I know. But I was busy the first couple days, so I was trying to find people to play with. I'm like, who had already played, and so they're like, "No, dude, like, I have 20 wins or whatever on my card, right?" It's like, I went flawless twice. I have 21 wins. I'm not playing again. So that's like the exact same problem.
My experience was, so I typically go flawless at reset on every Friday, but it was Halloween weekend. I got 2 kids, so we had like Halloween parties and family stuff and all that business. So I spent the weekend with the kids doing festivities. I didn't get into trials until Monday morning. Monday morning, I got on for my first real session with trials, solo queued. And I actually went back and I looked at the players that I played during this card. But I went solo queue, 7-0, no mercy used, didn't need it, won every game. And 2/3 of the people that I played against during that card were negative KD players. They're negative KD trials players overall. So 2/3.
And you're not. Like, your stats are way better.
So... It was a very casual stroll to the lighthouse for me, but it just kind of goes to show you that the more casual audience, this isn't actually good for you, because there's really no reason I should be matching people that honestly just they can't. There's no situation where they win that match. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think it's so self-explanatory, and I think what they wanted to do was really find a way to potentially combat the 6-win reset people, because there are teams of 3 that are out there just farming people and are doing carries to the lighthouse. But what they do is every time that they get to 6 wins, they reset the card, so they never go to the flawless pool. That way they can do their carries much more easily. But that punishes the people who are in the non-flawless pool, organically. So I think they really wanted to try and find a way to combat that. So, I mean, I got to give Bungie credit. They set out a goal they said, this is what we're going to try to accomplish with the matchmaking system. They accomplished what they said they would do. It wasn't good for the game, and immediately they saw that and pulled back on it, which I totally respect. I respect the experimentation, but yeah, this was clearly not it. So I hope they can come up with some more creative solutions, because I think I want the best of both worlds. I really do want the casuals to have a place in trials, to be able to win matches and get really cool loot. But I don't. And as an elite, as a higher end PvP player, at the same time, I also hope that people of my caliber don't just continue to stomp. I would love some, and I've been a big proponent of this for a while now. I would love some degree of not necessarily skill-based matchmaking, but outlier protection. So anytime. We know this, by the way, that Bungie attributes a skill value to every player. Your personal skill is a number value on Bungie's end, and they use this for various things, like lobby balancing is when it really comes into play a lot. But if they could look at those values and say, okay, so if it was a scale of 1 to 10, I'm sure it isn't. But if it was a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 and a 1 should never coexist. They should never be in the same lobby unless they're in preset fire teams, right? That's when that would get changed. But otherwise, a 10 and a 1, they just shouldn't be in the same spaces.
Yeah. You know what, though? I saw a lot of tweets of people being like, kind of just baiting the community, and it worked. They were saying, during last weekend, they were like, Grandmaster Nightfalls are way too hard. The light level needs to be lowered. I want a chance as Adept Loot. And dude, like, without question, all these PvEers came in and were like, dude, no, you just have to like play the game. Like, why should this good loot, why should Adept Loot be given for free? And they all just said, look, why does this not apply to trials? Like, the replies to when people complained about Grandmasters were, get better at the game, focus on your build, improve your skill. But if you say those things about trials, you're a toxic streamer. And it just was like really interesting that if people were kind of saying this, I even saw some like tweets or like people replying to those tweets about saying that about Grandmasters, and then they would go and find a tweet where they were saying that trials should be easier, and it's like, dude, it doesn't even make sense. So I think something that needs to change within the community is like, if you're a lower skilled player, you can't expect flawless. Like, Bungie's bending over backwards to try to seemingly get everyone a run to the lighthouse. That's just not going to happen. But if you look at how the system is designed, even if you lose every single round, you're getting reputation. And then you get one engram. You get to decrypt it to exactly what you want. You want a messenger. You want a Shaira's Wrath. Like, you're going to step away from that playlist with good, relevant loot. The only thing you're missing out on is Adept Loot, which is like the tiniest difference. It's like, okay, right, you get to put on Adept Big 1 spec for PvE, which is good, but it's like, it's not like if you have boss spec, you're going to completely like get wrecked. Like, the difference is extremely minor, but people feel like they're entitled to this Adept Loot. But it's like, listen, if Bungie just gives it away and makes it too easy, then everyone just finishes with the game. That's what happened in Destiny 2 launch. Like, dude, remember, you could get raid loot if your clanmates beat the raid. Yeah. You didn't have to step foot in the raid. You would get raid loot in the freaking post-match. You'd be like, you'd log on like, oh, I got raid loot.
Cool, baby.
And guess what happened? No one played the freaking raid, because it's like, why would I play the raid, which is hard, I have to find a team. I have all the raid loot and I've never played it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what's going to happen. Once everyone achieves and gets all the loot, they're just going to step out of the playlist. So it needs to be somewhat challenging. That's the whole point, is that it is somewhat challenging to reach the lighthouse. Now, I'm not saying that it should be like your first game ever and you're matching Grenade or Jake. Obviously, that's not right. That's why there's a little bit of card-based matchmaking. I don't disagree with the outlier protection. But when Bungie tries to do crazy stuff like the more wins you get, you're going to match based on that. Like, that just seems wild, and it seems like unrealistic. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, if you really want to just give everyone an Adept Shaira's Wrath, just freaking do it. Like, do it in the Postmaster as a fun thing. If that's your goal. Like, I don't understand, like, why are we doing all this crazy stuff with matchmaking?
Yeah. At the end of the day...
You go.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, at the end of the day, they blundered. They went back on it. And they're not the only person this week to do that.
Yeah, I do want to say, as much as I'm complaining, I'm okay with Bungie experimenting as long as they're like this. It was very good to see, like, hey, we screwed up. That last weekend, bad data. We're not doing that again. That's what you want to see. Yeah. If they're going to do this, I'm appreciative that they're actually coming out with the data, and because it would be very sketchy if they weren't telling us and we didn't know which weekends were doing well, which weekends were doing crappy, and that would cause a lot more infighting in the community. So I am glad they're being very transparent with their experimentations.